Good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to keep the schedule. It's always a challenge, especially before cocktail and at the end of the day, and to keep everybody awake. As you mentioned, I will not say a lot about Fluxys. We're a Belgian TSO, originally, historically, so we own and operate the Belgian gas grid, also the terminal in Zeebrugge and storage facilities. But in the meantime, over the past years, we evolved into a European company. We have now activities in 10 European countries, including Greece, where we are a partner in TAP. But I want to talk about TAP today. I don't want to talk about the hub today. I don't want to talk about things I already told here in Greece. I want to talk a little bit, share some thoughts about the energy transmission and the role that both power and gas grids can play and have to play in this respect. And so I would focus, therefore, to focus your minds on the Belgian situation. Of course, it's different from every country, but this is, for example, in Belgium, a typical winter day in the morning or in the evening when people have to need light because the days in Belgium are shorter in winter and longer in summer than here in Greece. And so typically in the morning we need light, we need heating, and the same in the evening. So our peak demand, it's in the morning and in the evening. And how do we do this? Well, the light is provided by power, of course, connected to the distribution grid, and the power is generated, of course, centrally, because maybe this house has some solar panels on the back, but it won't do much at this time of the day. And so for the heating, normally they will use natural gas. It could be an electrical heat pump, but even then it will use a lot of electricity, because if the temperature is below 6 degrees, then the efficiency is going down, especially if you have an air heat pump. So if we want to build the system of the future, we have to start from today and see what the advantages are of the system of today and how we can progress up to 2050 and beyond, of course, to achieve our objectives. And today, policymakers, they're making a quick jump. They say, well, 2050, everything needs to be electrified. And that's a very quick jump, because we don't know how technology will evolve. And so we should keep options open. Because if you look back 33 years in the past, there was no internet at home, nobody had it. There were no cellular phones, and there was no smartphones. It was even, we could not imagine that. So we cannot imagine how the world will look in 2050. So let's keep the options open, because if you, that's data from Belgium, the gas supplies to Belgium, the gas demand, it's about 170 terawatt hours against a power demand of about 80 terawatt hours. So if you would, it is very simple, of course, would shift the demand for gas for the residential users, it's 88 terawatt hours, then you see what it would mean for the power system. You would need to invest a lot in additional generation capacity, but also in grid reinforcements, both in the high voltage grid and in the distribution grids. So let's be very careful, let's keep the options open, because a lot of things to achieve the goals of 2050 are not known today. We don't have large-scale storage, we don't have power to X, power to methane, power to methanol, power to whatever, and we don't have CCS or CCU. So let's keep the options open in order to achieve the goal. That is the message I would bring. And anyhow, today we can already achieve a lot, because you can work on both axes to improve efficiency. And it's not sure that you will achieve the most efficiency on the right side and on the left side. So let's keep the options open. So how will the electricity of the future be generated if you talk about electrification? Because then you need to generate it. And so, therefore, I would like to show you the next slide. So we think, and I think that has been told, I will not dwell too long along this topic, that natural gas is the indispensable partner of renewable power production. Because if we talk about power production, and we need it because we are going to an electrified world, not completely, we need our offices, computers, but also trams, metros, robots, whatever, need electricity. But the problem is that we are now integrating a lot of renewables which are, of course, affecting the whole system. The reliability of the system needs to be guaranteed also in the future. Today, in our country, we have an LOLA, which is the index, a loss of load expectation of 3 hours. And so if you make simulations with the different programs that exist today, like PRIMES, for example, or the crystal supergrid model, you will see that if you introduce renewables, then you also increase the LOLA factor. So you need to take some counteractions in order to keep the reliability at the same level as it is today. And you can do it in multiple ways. First, you need dispatchable power production through, let's say, more classical production. Or you can have demand response. You can also count on interconnections, but watch out. A lot of countries are counting interconnections, while production in many countries is being reduced. Like in Germany, they announced that 22 gigawatts will go out before 2022. And this coincides with the phasing out of nuclear in Belgium. Nuclear today represents 60% of our power production. And between 2022 and 2025, so 6 gigawatts in Belgium will go out of service. And then we start counting on the other countries. So a very dangerous situation, so we have to be very careful about this. And then, what we also need, we need a robust power system, as I mentioned. There's a lot of variability. This is a day, somewhere I think last year, when you had not many wind. It's on the bottom, you see the variable production. You had solar during the day, peaking in the middle of the day, but we don't need so much cooling. And then at the end of the day, first you had some wind, and then the sun is going down. And what you see is that you need then a spike. And so in 3 hours, you need to be able to generate 5,000 megawatts, 5 gigawatts. I don't think batteries can do this today, and probably not tomorrow. And then there's heating. We heard also that we're going to electrify heating. But what does it really mean? In Belgium, we have a mature housing market. So for new construction, no problem. You have to do some isolation, be more efficient, and then you install, let's say, you need also a small heating capacity. But most of the houses in Belgium are already there since many years. And so we talk about refurbishment when it's more complicated to introduce the new, let's say, electric power systems. And you cannot introduce, let's say, the most efficient electrical power systems, power heat pumps, I mean. So let's see how it is supplied today. On the left side, you see natural gas, the current configuration of our system. On an average, we need to supply 20 gigawatt of natural gas, but in peak demand, it's 57 gigawatt. While on the power system, it's 9 on average and 14 on peak, so not much difference. And then now also a simple exercise. If you now would say, well, we will do everything electrical, then you see on the right side, so the first blocks are the average capacity you would need. So instead of 9, you would need 24 with the direct electrical heating, which is not very efficient. And if you would have electrical heat pumps all over the system with a performance coefficient of 3, you would need 14. So it's a lot. And then on an average. And then if you see the peak, it's even much beyond. So it's between 36 and 79. So keep these figures in mind. That's also what I'm telling to our policymakers who sometimes forget about this. And then, last but not least, natural gas as an alternative fuel for transport. Sometimes this is a little bit forgotten. Not in Italy. It was mentioned yesterday by Vittorio Muzzazzi. But in Belgium and in other countries, they forgot about it. We are now going to a period where we have electrical vehicles, which is normal, and it will evolve, I think. But you have to see when it can be used. It's for short distances today, and maybe a little bit longer tomorrow. But we see also hybrid cars. And hybrid cars, they have the advantage of a very bad regulation with regard to car homologation. If you have to understand that the car homologation system, the test cycles, have been designed in the 80s when there were no hybrid cars. And so what's happening now, you put a hybrid car on the test bench, it runs there for about less than 20 minutes, 11 kilometers, with a fully charged battery, and then they measure the exhaust. And that's why you have the BMW X-Range and you have the Porsche Panameras with a very efficient CO2 emission. But most of the people who are buying these cars, they are running long distances. And then they have two engines. They have batteries, and so once the battery is empty, they consume much more. And so therefore, we think that for natural gas cars, there's a disadvantage, which is not normal. And so we should fight against that. And then, this is the situation in Belgium as a TSO, and also together with the DSOs, we try to stimulate CNG. Today, we have about 6,500, so far below Italy. But it's increasing, and also the fuel stations. We hope by the end of the year to have 100 fuel stations in our country. And then, last but not least, LNG for transport. We talked, I think, yesterday about the chicken and egg problem. People say, well, this will not happen because it's a chicken and egg problem. Well, we try to drop some eggs, and that's some examples of eggs that we dropped. So we commissioned at the end of last year a second jetty, which is also capable of receiving small-scale LNG bunker ships. So with a small loading arm, you see the 4 big ones and the small one on the left side. We also partnered with ENGIE and Mitsubishi NYK to order an LNG bunker vessel, which is the first purpose-built LNG bunker vessel in the world. And it has its home port in Zeebrugge, where it is right now. And so it will be ready to load ships that will use LNG as a fuel. And there are already some car carriers which have been converted to LNG as a fuel. So we think the business will kick off. And on the right side, we have a truck loading station already for many years, and there also the demand is steadily increasing, so we have taken a decision to invest in a second loading station to prepare for the future. So I hope I've been short enough, and thank you very much.